Look, we all have that one friend, right? The one who always seems to be around when things are good, but mysteriously disappears when you need them the most. The one who borrows your favorite book and never returns it, or who promises to help you move but is suddenly busy on moving day. We all know someone like that. The one who borrows money and never pays it back. You lend them a few bucks thinking they'll return the favor, but instead, they vanish into thin air, leaving you to foot the bill. It's frustrating, isn't it? You start to question your own judgment, wondering why you trusted them in the first place. The one who says they're coming to your barbecue, then ghosts you for a hot dog eating contest 3 states over? Yeah, that friend. You spend hours preparing, grilling, and setting up only to find out they ditched you for something they found more exciting. It stings, doesn't it? You feel let down and unappreciated. Well, America, for 4 years, we had that friend as our president. Someone who made grand promises but often left us hanging when it mattered most. Someone who seemed more interested in their own agenda than in the well-being of the country. It was a tough pill to swallow, and frankly, it's time we unpack the betrayal U-Haul he left parked in our collective driveway. It's time to take a hard look at the mess that was left behind and understand the impact it had on all of us. We can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. Strap in, because over the next few minutes we're diving deep into the top 5 reasons why Donald Trump's actions weren't just bad policy, but a full-blown betrayal of the American people. We're going to explore the decisions that left us reeling, and the consequences that we're still dealing with today. They were a full-blown betrayal of the American people. From the erosion of trust in our institutions to the deepening of societal divides, the impact was profound and far-reaching. It wasn't just about politics, it was about the very fabric of our nation. From mishandling a global pandemic that cost countless lives and livelihoods, to ignoring the advice of experts and downplaying the severity of the crisis. The result? Overwhelmed hospitals, exhausted healthcare workers, and families struggling to make ends meet. The human cost was staggering, to rolling back environmental protections that put our planet at risk. Policies that were designed to safeguard our air, water, and natural resources were dismantled, leaving us vulnerable to the consequences of climate change. The long-term effects on our environment are still unfolding, to stoking division and undermining social justice movements. Instead of bringing people together, actions were taken that deepened the rifts in our society. Protests were met with hostility, and the fight for equality was often dismissed or derided. The scars of these actions are still visible today, to attacking healthcare policies that millions rely on. Efforts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act left many Americans fearing for their health and financial security. The uncertainty and anxiety caused by these attacks were felt by families across the nation. And finally, to undermining the very foundations of our democracy. From questioning the integrity of our elections to inciting unrest, the actions taken were a direct threat to the democratic principles we hold dear. It's a reminder of how fragile our democracy can be and the importance of protecting it. Let's start with the obvious. The man seemed to have a weird soft spot for dictators. It's not just a matter of diplomatic niceties or strategic alliances, it was almost as if he admired their iron-fisted control. This wasn't about fostering peace or stability, it was about cozying up to some of the most repressive regimes in the world. I'm talking about the kind of guys who use their military to silence dissent, crush protests, and maintain power through fear and violence. These are leaders who don't hesitate to use brute force to keep their citizens in line, not, direct traffic during rush hour. These are not the actions of a government that respects human rights or democratic principles. Remember when he publicly sided with Putin over our own intelligence agencies? It was a jaw-dropping moment that left many wondering where his loyalties truly lay. In Helsinki, he stood next to Putin and dismissed the findings of our intelligence community about Russian interference in the 2016 election. It was a blatant disregard for the hard work and expertise of our intelligence professionals. Or how he legitimized that Bond villain cosplaying as North Korea's supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. This wasn't just a photo op, it was a significant diplomatic move that had far-reaching implications. He even crossed the DMZ into North Korea, becoming the first sitting US president to do so, and held multiple summits with Kim, giving him international legitimacy. These meetings were more than symbolic. They were a clear signal that the US was willing to engage with a regime known for its human rights abuses. Let's not forget his unwavering support for Saudi Arabia, even after the whole bonesaw incident with Jamal Khashoggi. The murder of the journalist was a brutal act that shocked the world, yet it didn't seem to faze him. Despite the CIA concluding that the Saudi crown prince ordered Khashoggi's murder, Trump continued to support Saudi Arabia, citing arms deals and oil. It was a clear case of putting economic interests above human rights and justice. And his flip-flopping on China, one minute they're the enemy, the next minute they're sending us beautiful letters. This inconsistency made it difficult to understand his true stance on one of the most significant global powers. He praised Xi Jinping's handling of the COVID-19 outbreak early on, only to later blame China entirely for the pandemic. This kind of erratic behavior undermined any coherent foreign policy strategy. Look, I'm no foreign policy expert, but I'm pretty sure international relations shouldn't be treated like a Tinder match: swipe right for dictators, swipe left on democracy. This isn't a game, these are real lives and real consequences. It's a bad look, America, a really, really bad look. Our actions on the global stage reflect our values and principles. When we align ourselves with dictators and repressive regimes, we send a message that we are willing to compromise on our core beliefs for the sake of convenience or economic gain. This not only damages our reputation but also undermines the very foundation of what we stand for as a nation. We must remember that our strength lies not just in our military or economic power, but in our commitment to freedom, justice, and human rights. Let's strive to be a beacon of hope and a force for good in the world. Now I know what you're thinking, Kuda, you're being a little dramatic, but am I? Let's take a closer look at what really happened. This isn't just about one man's bruised ego, it's about a systematic attempt to undermine the democratic process. When someone loses an election, they are supposed to concede gracefully, respect the will of the people, and support a peaceful transition of power. But that's not what happened here. This is a man who, after losing a free and fair election, spent months trying to overturn the results. He didn't just question the outcome, he launched a full-scale assault on the integrity of our electoral system. He spread baseless claims of widespread voter fraud, despite having no evidence to back them up. His actions sowed doubt and division among the American people, shaking the very foundations of our democracy. He called it rigged, but the only rigging going on was his desperate attempt to cling to power. He used his platform to spread misinformation, convincing millions of his supporters that the election had been stolen from them. This wasn't just a case of sour grapes, it was a calculated effort to subvert the democratic process and maintain his grip on power at any cost. Remember that phone call? The one where he pressured Georgia officials to find him enough votes? That wasn't just a casual conversation. It was a blatant attempt to manipulate the outcome of the election. He was essentially asking them to fabricate votes in his favor, to overturn the will of the people. This kind of behavior is not only unethical, but also illegal. Or how about the January 6th insurrection, where a mob of his supporters stormed the Capitol? This was not a spontaneous protest, it was a coordinated attack on our democracy incited by his inflammatory rhetoric. The violence and chaos that ensued were a direct result of his refusal to accept the election results and his relentless efforts to undermine the democratic process. His legal team filed dozens of lawsuits, all of which were dismissed for lack of evidence. These lawsuits were not about seeking justice, they were about creating a smokescreen, a way to keep the false narrative of a stolen election alive. Despite losing case after case, he continued to push the lie, further dividing the nation and eroding trust in our electoral system. This wasn't just a guy throwing a tantrum after losing a game of Monopoly. This was a calculated, deliberate attempt to subvert the will of the people and undermine the very principles upon which our nation was founded. It was an attack on the core values of democracy, an effort to replace the rule of law with the rule of one man. This was an attack on the very foundation of our democracy. It wasn't just about one election, it was about the future of our democratic system. If we allow such actions to go unchecked, we risk losing the very freedoms and rights that define us as a nation. We must stand up and defend our democracy, ensuring that the will of the people is respected and upheld. He even tried to undermine the electoral college process, pressuring officials to reject certified results. This wasn't just a political maneuver, it was an attempt to overthrow the legitimate outcome of a democratic election. Such actions are not only undemocratic but also a direct threat to the stability and integrity of our nation. These actions were not just undemocratic, they were a direct threat to the rule of law. They challenged the very essence of what it means to be a democratic society. We must remain vigilant and committed to protecting our democratic institutions, ensuring that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. Let's talk about the economy, or as Trump seemed to see it, his personal scorecard. Trade wars? He started them like a kid starting a food fight in a cafeteria. The 2017 tax bill? Let's just say it benefited billionaires more than it helped working families. Middle-class families saw little relief, while small business owners struggled to keep their doors open. And don't even get me started on his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember when he called it a hoax? Or when he downplayed the severity of the virus while people were dying? His actions weren't just incompetent, they were downright dangerous. You know that friend who always keeps secrets? The one who never tells you what they're really thinking? Yeah, Trump was that friend, but on a national scale. He refused to release his tax returns, hid his medical records, and constantly lied to the American people. Remember when he claimed he had the largest inauguration crowd ever? Or when he said the Access Hollywood tape was fake? Look, honesty and transparency are kind of important when you're the leader of the free world. But for Trump, the truth was always whatever was most convenient for him at the moment. He signed executive orders without public scrutiny, held secretive meetings with foreign leaders, and rolled back environmental protections without proper disclosure. His lack of transparency had real consequences affecting healthcare, the environment, and trust in government. This last one is a bit more difficult to quantify, but arguably the most damaging. Trump's presidency chipped away at the very fabric of our nation. He emboldened white supremacists, demonized immigrants, and fueled a culture of division and distrust. He made it okay to be openly cruel, to disregard facts, to celebrate ignorance. He turned us against each other, and for what? For ratings? For ego? The social fabric of America was torn apart, leaving communities fractured and trust eroded. Families were divided, friendships ended, and social media became a battleground. Community centers emptied, local businesses suffered, and individuals felt more isolated than ever. The road to healing will be long, but it's essential for the future of our nation. We must come together, rebuild, and strive for a more united and compassionate America. Look, I'm not here to tell you how to feel about Donald Trump. Love him, hate him, build a golden statue in his honor, that's your prerogative. But what I will say is this: we deserve better. America deserves a leader who believes in facts, who respects the Constitution, and who actually cares about the well-being of all Americans. We need a leader who prioritizes unity over division and transparency over secrecy. A leader who listens to the voices of the people and takes action based on their needs. We need to learn from our mistakes, hold our leaders accountable, and demand better for ourselves and for future generations. Because America, we are better than this. Let's work together to build a brighter future.